A few minutes here of our SlimeyCrud weekend rides. Kind of discombobulated. I messed up and my timestamp on my videos and some of my photos got messed up, so everything's a little bit jostled around. This southeast of Richland Center, just off of County Road T. We're headed out to Highway 14. Fun little curvy road. Eric had decided to go off on his own. Didn't go along with us. There we passed a couple of fishermen. We just happened. I had no idea where he was going to go, although I was pretty sure he was going to head down southeast of the river. We got just around the corner here, out to the highway, and there's a big Honda motorcycle, ATV. I forget all the Japanese brands that they do carry. But there was Eric in the parking lot. We waved as it went by. I happened to notice him. I guess not everybody did. Here we're just coming up to him right now. Big stock of ATVs on the right. Big dealership. A couple of years ago we stopped in there. I guess we've stopped a couple of times. Walked around a little bit. Did a little bit of shopping without spending any money. Here's Eric. Sitting right there. A quick wave. Out to the highway. Now we're south of town, down to 130. Crossing the Wisconsin River. A choice has to be made here when you get across the other side. Left or right. Pretty hard to go straight ahead. River was really high, as most of the rivers around here have been lately. There's a wayside just off to the left over there, almost completely underwater. High Point Road here, another favorite. Winds through the countryside, through the valleys, up. A lot of mud on the roads, often in the corners. Mud from the fields and different kind of mud from barns being cleaned out this time of year. Get the manure out on the fields and plowed under, worked in before the crops get planted. Really, really pretty day. The greens, the browns, shades of light green. Just a beautiful day. We got really lucky. And as we are wont to do, we rode a little ways here. I try and find a quiet spot where we won't get run into. Pulled over. We get off and stretch our legs. Try and do it periodically so that everybody stays awake, has a chance to get off. The group here, Steve's old 86 Harley. Eric's GS rig, new sidecar. Eric brought cheese curds, so we had some of those. Here's a camera in behind. Steve on his Harley behind me. Scott on his Ural rig behind that. And then Eric in behind. It was the four of us on Friday. Some pretty nice roads. Swooping through the countryside, and again, I was on the Himalayan. Fourth gear, 4,000 RPM, 37, 38 miles an hour, I think is what we averaged the entire time. This was southeast of Stitzer, or Switzer. Beautiful country. Up and down, longer, shallower, well, not necessarily shallow, less steep. Broader valleys, I should say. Down into the valleys and up again. gentle curves for the most part, certainly down in this part of the state. With these broad valleys, there weren't the tight corners that there are in some of the areas further north. Tighter corners, more abrupt elevation changes. And again, almost all of this when we're on these named roads rather than the county roads. 35, 40 miles an hour, a little slower up the hills. Often blind coming up over the top of the hills. Got to be careful that you're over the right, just in case that oncoming car is there. Here we're getting close down to Pine Bluff, the site of Sunday's first stop of the SlimeyCrud run. Winding up over this last hill. And drop down into this valley. Here's a big planter sitting alongside the road, taking a break. Down to this last 90-degree corner. And in the suburbs of Pine Bluff. We've been on this road many times when we leave Pine Bluff and head up to Leland. This time we went the other direction. Here's Pine Bluff coming up to downtown. On Sunday, with the weather the way it was, I'm sure there were bikes lining these streets up and down. The main event, headquarters, if there was such a thing, is off to the left. This bar, the Red Moose, and bikes are typically stuffed in that parking lot to the left, solidly lining this street. When we were here last spring, there's a church way down here on the right, and that was as close as we were able to park. And we had to walk back up this entire length. You can see the church steeple coming up here on the right. This was solid motorcycles, both sides of the road. There, those trees by the left were where we parked. We stopped in Verona for lunch, and now we're headed west. Going to get on the entrance ramp onto a short little half mile of US 18. We're going to go pick up our last of the 4 cheese factories that I stopped at. This is the Malone. Merging into the 65 and 70 mile an hour traffic here. Pretty sure this was the fastest and probably the only place that I was much over 60 the entire weekend. Here I am stopped at the Malone Cheese Factory, took one picture of my bike and the site of the former cheese factory. There'd been a brand new house built on the site where the cheese factory had been. Here's the adjacent farm. I'm guessing it's one of the children of the farmer here. Here's where everybody waited for me while I took the photo. As soon as I went past, they came up. We stopped in Barneveld for gas, and I decided to leave Tom here, and then everybody encouraged me to go back and get him. I had to turn the audio down right here. Tom wondered where everybody had gone. And Sunday morning, on our way to breakfast and then on over to SlimeyCrud. Hadn't rained overnight. Probably rained an hour from maybe 6 to 7. Our breakfast meeting time was going to be 8 o'clock. We rode through wet roads but didn't ride through any rain. We didn't have any rain all weekend. Back into Richland Center. Coming into town and then down in the south end of town at the Center Cafe where we had more than one meal. And there you have it. That's what riding is like in early May in southeast Wisconsin. We had a really good time. Good weekend.